So now let's see if we can start thinking about what decision. So let's say that we're going with a decision. We're going to use G because it's less than B and A because we know we have the right decision rule. Fine. So maybe we have a situation at the city level like this. And maybe B is here and A is here, right? Maybe this is, actually maybe we'll flip this, right? And maybe this would be a case where we're trying to figure out rules of the road. Who has to yield at an intersection? And we have some options. We could just drive on at pace and run into each other. We could have a one-size-fits-all solution like we currently do. You yield to people on the right. And we might also have the option of everybody at an intersection can stop and negotiate and try and figure out who should go first. I think it's easy for most of us. I suspect that by the time we factor in stopping at every intersection and negotiating everybody compared to the occasional accident, I'm not sure. Right? It's kind of hard to tell which of these should be where. But let's run with it as though it's in this situation. The more I think about it, maybe they should be switched. I'm not positive. So in this case, clearly, as long as we have a decision rule that's somewhere in here, we should use G. But now this gets a little bit more complicated. This is G at the city level. How about if we decide this at the state level, or maybe the county level? What's going to happen at the county level? Well, I wish I had some more board space here, so you're going to have to hold this one in your head or be able to rewind to it, and let's see if I can indicate. So let's decompose our function, our G function. And now let's look at the underlying pieces. So we have our decision-making cost function and our external cost function. And again, there's no reason these look exactly this way. So when we go, so this is our decision-making at the city level. When we go to the county level, what's going to happen? Well, at close to 100% of the population, it's going to take more time and energy for that same maybe 90% of the population. Or maybe right here, what's going to happen? Making a decision as a larger group is going to be costlier. Making a decision as a larger group is going to be costlier. And so this would be our G at the county level. And at the same time, our external cost function. When we get to the county level, there's going to be people who are more different from us and further away from us, who are not as similar to us typically, right? And so what's going to happen? It's going to be more likely that we're going to be forced to eat things like menudo. I don't really like intestine, right? Some people really do. So either we're going to be forced to not eat menudo or forced to eat menudo, and once we get larger groups of people, the likelihood that we're being forced to eat something we don't like, or in this case, forced to yield in a fashion that we don't like, is almost certainly going to go up. And so this would be at the county level, and this would be at the city level. And so if I put in, and I know we're getting a bunch of lines in here, maybe this is G city, when we add those up, and now I'll try and clean this up. We get rid of this lower function here, we get rid of this lower function here. And then if we do the same thing for this other, we add them up vertically. We take this, we're going to end up with a county function that looks something like that. Why? Because all of those underlying components, oops, yes, no, did not mean to do that. So that's city, and that's county. And so why is this relevant? Well, this is G at the county, and this is G at the city. But remember, what we had was, maybe we had B, or what did I do? I had A in here like this, and maybe I'll exaggerate, and maybe B is up here. So at the county level, should we use collective action? Well, the answer would be no. Turns out just living with the spillover is lower cost than anywhere along in the county level function. At the city level, should we use G? Well, yes, if we can get the optimal decision rule somewhere in there. If we can't, then we wouldn't want to use G at the city level. Now, if A was not feasible and city level wasn't feasible, then would we want to use G at the county level? Again, only if we had the optimal decision rule or something in that range. So this tells us this is a little bit more nuanced. Now, if we think about this, here, we have, maybe this is at the neighborhood level, this is at the city level, this is at the county level, maybe this up here is at the national, or maybe that's at the state level, and I could make my right? What's going to happen when we go to the national level? Both the external costs and the decision-making costs are going to be even bigger. In other words, that's going to shift up there. So what does this tell us? When should we take action at the national level? So think about that subset of human activities that you think where G is less than B and A. Now again, as I've tried to clarify here, whether B is less than G and A will often depend on the decision rule that is used. But let's say that G is less than B and A. Turns out that G is only less than B and A if we make decisions at the appropriate level. So if I put in, let's say that B is less than A, and I put B in here, it turns out that B is definitely, that there's some range to possibly make this decision at the county level, but we would almost certainly be better off at the city level, and we would almost certainly be at even lower cost at the neighborhood level. And it would never make sense to make this decision at the state level. And so this tells us that both the decision rule and the level at which the decision is taken is important. This also would imply that unless there's something working against it, we should always take decisions at the most local level we possibly could. In other words, if we can make a decision at the local level, at the neighborhood level, we should do it. Unless there's something that we're missing here. So I'm going to drop a different picture. Hopefully this is sort of stuck in your brain, that we can again start talking about, right, this is not going to give us answers, but it's going to give us a framework for telling stories and having meaningful discussions. So there's one more piece I want to bring into this mix. We've got G versus B versus A. We have these pictures, our decision-making cost and our external cost functions, and then our interdependence costs, our overall cost functions for G. And there's one more piece that I need to bring in to make some analytic sense of this, and then that's really a fairly concise, hopefully in my view, analytic framework for starting to talk about when it makes cogent analytic sense to use collective action.